Good morning. It is Saturday morning at 9:42. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again from Film Fanatic headquarters, January 17th. So, yeah, and it's snowing right now. I guess we're supposed to get some more snow today and then tomorrow, which would be nice because we had a little bit we had a good amount of snow around Christmas time, which was awesome, and then a little bit before and after. But it's been kind of light as far as snow this year. And it got really warm, but it's back to being kind of normal winter conditions. So it'd be nice if we get some significant snow. It's not like coming down at a super hard rate, but I think we got almost an inch. But anyway, I hope everyone's doing good. I'm excited. I'm gonna be going to. I've been watching so many movies lately. It's been so awesome, and mostly all like new films for me at least. I've been watching a lot of. Again, I came across a fantastic YouTube channel, so I've been watching the Film Crypt, which I've mentioned a lot, and fantastic YouTube channel. There's so many really awesome exploitation movies that are on this page for free that are all like really good quality. I'm not one to watch things online. Generally, I hate it, but the quality is so good, and these are all movies I've never seen, and the reason that I just randomly came across it like a week or two ago, but about a week ago, kind of right before I discovered this the Film Crypt YouTube channel, my TV got smashed. So I was without a television, and I knew it was going to take a little bit of time to get a new TV and all those things. So I was going through a little mental crisis and withdrawal of like, what was I going to do? What was I going to do? Because I watch movies a lot, and then I happened to come across this YouTube channel, and it's been amazing. So I've been most of the videos as of late are from seeing all of these movies, and they're just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, and then tonight, and I've been going to the movies quite a bit. Tonight, I'm going with some friends to see for the second time this amazing film. I think it's a masterpiece. The Secret Agent. It's a Brazilian. It's a film that's set in Brazil in the 70s and 1977, and it's a thriller, and it's got a lot of other elements to it. Overall, it's a thriller, but amazing film. Such a visual feast. It's so beautifully shot. The music. It's got to be like, I'm a big fan of period piece films, and this is got to be probably the best like period piece movie I've seen in a long time, just because it's so detailed and it's so rich. Yeah, awesome. So I'm gonna go see it again. A friend who's going got us some free passes, so I'm able to see it for free. So I'm really excited about, because this is a movie that's made for the like theatrical experience, going to the theater and being in a nice big room with good sound. And we're gonna go see it at the Colonial, which is pretty good. It's pretty solid. So I'm excited. I'm really excited. And plus, it's gonna be. I think. Well, I don't know if it's actually out on physical media yet, DVD, Blu-ray. I don't think it's streaming, and so I'm not sure, but it should be really soon until that happens. I just saw this movie. The first time I saw Secret Agent was only a couple of weeks ago, and it's been out in the theater or in a somewhat wide release. It's a foreign film, so there isn't, we don't get that super long run like we would, like if it was, I don't know, Captain America 10 or whatever. So it's pretty nice that we live in an area that there's, multiple theaters showing a movie like this, and you have these chances. This is the third theater that I know of in the area that is showing this movie, so that's pretty special. And I do believe it's the theatrical run for The Secret Agent is pretty much coming to a close and to an end. So I jumped at the chance to go see it again. Plus, we're kind of go seeing it. We're seeing it for free, so because it's meant for that that experience. I'll definitely buy it on Blu-ray when it comes out. And it's the '70s in general. That's my favorite decade for films, and so this is like this. It literally is like it's funny. It's literally like watching a movie from the '70s because when you watch period pieces, which I really love, you kind of always know, always have this sense of okay, this was shot in 2025 or 2026 or whatever. Even though the detail and richness can be there, there's still always it's hard to always like lose that sometimes. But with this movie, it really I forgot. There were many times when I saw The Secret Agent where I was like totally forgot that this was from 2025, like literally, and it was wild, like stepping into like a time machine. That's kind of what it was like. So yeah, just fantastic. So very excited about that. And then tomorrow I'm gonna go to the movies again to see this new monkey horror slasher movie called Primate, which I heard is really good. And haven't been to the movies in a while to see a good horror film, so I'm excited to see that. We're gonna go tomorrow night, weather permitting. I think it might snow a lot tomorrow, but we'll see. But that's the plan. That's a new one. It just came out, I believe, last week. It's called Primate, and it looks pretty badass. So we'll see. I'm trying to stay away from it. Trying to stay away from any real reviews or those kinds of things. I've generally heard mostly really good things. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm excited. And today's show is on a movie that I just saw last. Well, actually, this week. I saw it this week for the very first time. I had never heard of this movie, and I could not believe. There were times I couldn't believe I was watching what I was watching, and I was totally floored by this movie. It's got to be one of the most uh, deranged and also one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in general. Definitely in recent time, but maybe even in general. I mean, it's such a fucking crazy movie, and that is the one and only Microwave Massacre. Yes, that is the title, Microwave Massacre. This movie is. I was blown away by this movie. I never heard of this movie. It came out in 1979. Total trashy exploitation movie. It is. This movie was made for people like me. I never heard of this movie. I watched it for the first time, and I was just totally floored. And it's a horror movie. It's a slasher movie. It's and it's so like it's just it's what the premise of the movie is basically about this guy who is like you get introduced to this guy and he's married and he has a totally like horrible relationship with his wife. And the movie is very funny. It's really so over the top. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like a John Waters kind of thing. But it's super trashy and it's super over the top. And the dialogue, again, and I totally believe that in this kind of cliche thing that people say a lot, but I think it's totally true. This movie truly is so bad it's good. I mean, it's unbelievable, and it gets it's very light and it's very funny, and I think there's times where it's so funny where like there's actual comedic beats thrown written into the script. But then I think most of this film is so funny, not intentionally. It's just because of how bad some of the acting is. It's it's a trip. This movie is a total trip. And the basic premise is about this guy who is married to this woman, and they clearly are at each other's throats. They don't get along, and he is like this, kind of working class guy, and he's a construction worker. And there's like all of these scenes of where he's at in the beginning of the film when you're kind of introduced to him, and it's super hilarious. Where he's like at the construction site with his buddies, and they're like taking lunch breaks, and they're just talking about everyday shit, and it's just like so hilarious and so like ridiculous. And again, the writing is at times so atrocious, and the acting is so atrocious, but it's so amazing. It's like it's again, it's like it's so, and I've said this before with other exploitation movies. It's so extremely bad that it's extremely good. It's that balance. It's that weird juxtaposition, if you will, that like something can be so awful that, and it's usually because has it's kind of twisted in kind of an extreme way that it actually can make the experience of like watching it really fun. Like you could have a movie like that is just not very good and doesn't really hold up, and it doesn't have that kind of quality that it does like flip itself over and you actually enjoy it. Like I think a movie that's an example of a movie that is just so bad that it's just bad, and it's literally um, it feels like your brain is getting raped. A movie that I can think of as an example, which is so bad it's bad, is like the Cats. A few years ago, there was the Cats, the famous musical. They made a live action film of it, and it's like it's such an atrocity, but there's no redeeming quality about it. It's literally, yeah, it's 2 hours of pure unadulterated pain. So, but this with Microwave Massacre, you could say, for all intents and purposes, maybe it's almost worse than that movie, but it's got such a fucking switch to it that it's so fucking enjoyable. And I'm a lot of the times when I watch these movies, and this is a primetime example with Microwave Massacre. I mean, just the fucking title alone is just like, what? A lot of the times when I'm watching these movies, and definitely with Microwave Massacre, I'm like watching the movie and I'm kind of like enjoying it, and it's kind of cringy, and yet I'm like fascinated by it, and I'm laughing my ass off, but then I'm like the biggest things that run through my mind, or thoughts that run through my mind, are like, wow, how did this get fucking made? How did it get fucking financed? And then I get curious, like, okay, how far did this get as far as like distribution? Like, did it actually go into the theaters? Like, holy shit! Because making movies, it costs money. So you need money to make movies, whether it's obviously a big budget or a smaller budget, but you need to run the gamut. Filmmakers need to run the gamut, work hard, and raise money, and they have to have a budget to do a movie, and so it's like, wow, how did they get the money for this? It's like it's mind-boggling, but yet at the same time, I'm like fascinated by how just crazy this movie is. So the basic premise opens up with this guy who's a construction worker. He does not get along with his wife. He's working as a construction worker, and there's like these opening scenes where he is, hanging out with his coworkers on lunch break, and they're just like total, idiots. They're like, they're catcalling. There's like scenes of like these girls walking by, and there's like a scene where this girl is like kind of hitting on them, and she like takes her top off and she like shows their boobs, and it's fucking hilarious. She like there's a scene of where there's a fence of where they're actually having a lunch break, and this really hot girl comes walking up, and there's like a hole in the fence, and she sticks her titties right through the fence, and yeah, it's just it's you got to see it. Microwave Massacre is a movie you have to see to believe, and I don't know anything about this movie. I would absolutely um, rob a bank to, or I don't know, maybe not rob a bank, but I would I would absolutely do anything to get this on Blu-ray. I think I'm sure. I mean, that's one of the things about this current day and age. Even though the world is like kind of falling to shit, if you're collecting movies, man, it's the best shit ever. It's the best time, and I would imagine that this movie is available somewhere on Blu-ray or 4K. Like I want to look it up. I haven't taken the time to do that. On the other hand, I am sometimes surprised by certain movies that don't get a release in this age, but that's pretty low, I think, in the totem pole because the amount of stuff that is coming out on Blu-ray 4K, where you're talking about, some of the most obscure, weird fucking movies, and just pure trash that is being put out on 4K. So I would imagine, all the just incredible boutique labels that exist. So I would imagine that this does exist somewhere, which if there's a God, that would be the case. So, and so you have these scenes where you're being introduced to these characters, and just how fucking just dumb these guys are, just like hilarious, and they're just kind of pigs, and then their interaction with these women at the job sites, it's just like, oh my god. But this guy overall does not get along with his wife, and the big fight that they have continually, or area of contention, is is her cooking. He can't stand her cooking. Like she's supposed to, he thinks her all of her cooking is absolutely gross and disgusting, and that's like the biggest conflict that they have. And you get to see, and you start seeing glimmers that the main character, this guy is, there's something seriously wrong with him, and he is kind of psychotic. And so what ends up happening is he ends up killing her, and she had just gotten, this movie is from the early 80s, and from 79. So the wife, right before she gets murdered, she buys one of the first kind of microwaves that was put out in the market. But the microwaves in the late 70s or 80s, when they first came out, were gigantic. They were huge. They were like the size of like a giant oven. But that was a microwave, and it was kind of this revolutionary thing because you could warm food up or whatever. And so she buys this gigantic fucking microwave, and it's hilarious. And so what he ends up doing is he ends up killing her, and then he cuts up her body, and then he decides to eat her. So the whole movie is about kind of cannibalism. And then what he proceeds to do is he starts like cutting up her body, and then he like makes sandwiches and food with her flesh and her meat, and then he starts bringing all of this all of her, her body parts, make sandwiches at and food with all of her remains, and then he starts bringing it to the job site to his friends, and his friends, like, they don't know what's going on, and they love the food. They start um, they think it's like he's like the greatest cook, and then so that pushes the lead character onto this path of where he becomes this like slasher killer, and he starts killing all of these women, and he's a cannibal, and it's fucking bonkers, and but it's so funny. And I didn't realize, again, I went into this movie not realizing that this movie was like kind of a black comedy, but it's a slasher. It's definitely a slasher movie too, which, again, if it slasher movies that's my jam. But I didn't know that this movie was like really all about just fucking crazy like cannibalism. I mean, it's wild. It's wild. The cast is really good. I mean, again, it's the case. It's a primetime example of it's so bad it's good, but it's so bad it's really really good. It was directed by Wayne Berwick. I have no idea who he is. I want to learn more about him. Um, the cast again is just amazing. Jack Vernon is in this film. Um, Lauren Shine, Al Trope, Marlo Simon, and Claire Ginsburg. I do believe Jack Vernon is the lead actor in this film, and he is like he is astounding. Um, I mean, seriously, it's just absolutely fantastic. Um, Absolutely fantastic. Also, Lauren Shine, if I didn't give her props. And again, the cast is just it's again, this movie is so it totes that line because it's so absurd and it's really funny, and a lot of it is funny in a way that I don't think was intentional by the filmmakers or the people involved with the film per se, because I think a lot of the comedy just comes out of. I mean, aside from the again like comedic beats kind of in the script or in the story, I think most of the funny, the kind of the comedy aspect of it or aspects of it come from just how terrible some of the acting is, and you know and some of the writing, but it's amazing. It's amazing, and again it's very silly and goofy, especially when you're in the beginning, but the movie gets way more. It gets darker. Obviously, the film gets a lot darker. It does have like this, and it does get more and more kind of well, it gets more disturbing, and so the film kind of moves into this thing of where suddenly it's more like serious, and it's not like light. I mean, it's hard to say that a movie on the subject matter of cannibalism is going to be light-hearted and fun. I mean, with the exception of Cannibal the Musical by the makers of South Park, which is amazing. Like that's just really funny. But at face value, you're not going to equate comedy with cannibalism per se. And so this movie does that, but it does go into some very deranged, kind of disturbing territory, and it does have this like it goes into this kind of more serious, like the tone does shift, and it's not quite as silly and goofy and funny, intentionally and unintentionally. It does have this like kind of heavily deranged thing that happens in the movie, and it's uh it's really good. It's a cool balance, you know. And I did find myself at times catching myself, laughing at moments of where I felt like, man, that's fucked up. I shouldn't be laughing at this. The ending for this movie is fantastic, really, really great. I can't recommend this movie enough. It's. I mean, I described it, and that's the kind of the gist of the story. But me just describing it this way or that way is not doing it justice. It's it's more you just gotta experience Microwave Massacre. From '79. I mean, the best time period really ever. It truly doesn't get any better than that. So you have to do it. You have to just experience it. You have to see it to believe it. I guess is what I'm trying to say. And like I said, this was definitely an example of where I was watching this movie and I kind of couldn't believe what I was seeing, and then I was like, how in God's name did this get made? Like, I can just imagine, like, the filmmakers proposing this idea to future or possible candidates or people who are interested in financing this movie, and then for them to, like, I don't know anything about the history of this movie either, so I kind of like that I don't, but I will probably find out more. But then, after the movie gets made, some fucking how, then they try to figure out a way to distribute it, and I can just imagine them, like, screening the film to get picked up by some company to get distribution, if it even got distribution. Like, it's super low budget, but actually the production value, like, it looks really good. The quality of this movie, like, the music is really good, um, and the acting is just fucking fantastically terrible. Um, but the production side of things, it looks really good, and the editing from a technical side, even though this movie was like uber low budget, it's done really really well. Like, I will say, from a technical standpoint, like the editing, kind of the story, the way they kind of cut back, they cut. There's a lot of scenes of where he is home with his wife, fighting and all of this shit, and then the whole cannibalism thing happens. But then there's lots of cuts of where he's at work at this job site because he's a construction worker, and he's like hanging out with his coworkers during lunch and the conversations. And there's a lot of cool um, kind of back and forth. And from a technical standpoint, I do really think that this movie is really well directed, like really really well directed. And I do think that this movie has like a even though it's totally fucking whacked, it does have a real like cohesiveness to it. You know, because I think it's like some other directors that I really really love that I'm more familiar with in the world of exploitation, like one of my two of my favorite directors, and especially one of my all time favorite directors, by Herschel Gordon Lewis. Like, he like wasn't really like, as far as like how I'm comparing this movie, Microwave Massacre, like on a technical level, which is not something you're gonna really do with an exploitation movie, but still, I think it's a worthy thing. Like, from a technical standpoint, it's done very very well. Like, it looks really good. I don't know what the budget was. Obviously, it was very very low, but it looks really good. It has that motion to it where you feel like you know you're watching a movie, and it has that kind of storytelling vibe, and the editing's really good. It's shot really well, and in a lot of the cases of exploitation, you don't really have that technical skill from directors. I think like Herschel Gordon Lewis is a great example of like, he didn't really have like that technical skill. Like you can see in a lot of his films that like the editing is fucked up, and like it might the cohesive nature from like, if you look at something like, I don't know, like The Wizard of Gore, which I fucking love that movie to death. But like if you look at it from a say a technical standpoint, there's all these like weird cuts and like jumps to these scenes that like kind of don't make any fucking sense, and you're like, wait, what the hell was going on? And then eventually you find your way again. But in his own way, and for what he did, Herschel Gordon Lewis, you know, I think he was kind of this fucking crazy genius. And he was so ahead of the time as far as gore. I mean, he did it. He really introduced practical effects and gore before any other director that I know of. Tracing back the lineage from like the 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s, and beyond. I mean, he was. I mean, that's why he is given that title of the Godfather of Gore. I mean, he really was the guy who kind of invented it. So that's his strength. But like, his technical thing was, kind of fucked up. Like he didn't really know what he was doing as a filmmaker. And there's some people who would say that, well, he wasn't really a filmmaker. I mean, because he was an ad guy. He was in the business to like capitalize. He knew he had this niche of freaks out there that like these trashy movies, so he wanted to capitalize on it. And he had definitely a very distinct style as a filmmaker, and all these things, and entertaining as fuck. And but as far as like his serious things that he's left behind, like a legacy, when it comes to horror films, he was the guy before anyone else that I know of that was the guy who introduced practical effects, copious amounts of gore and blood in a movie. He was the guy. But really, from a technical standpoint, not a great director, but that's okay because he's amazing and he's Herschel Gordon Lewis, and that's all you need. And then I think of another director that I really, really love, Jess Franco, who is just amazing, and probably the most prolific director that I know of. He like really, like, it's interesting because like his films have some of those same qualities where like maybe when you first see it, the editing is weird or there's things that are off about it. But getting to know him more as a director and getting more familiar with his style, like a lot of that stuff was really intentional. It was he wanted to kind of play with any kind of like taking the idea of like a traditional narrative that a person might get from like say watching a horror film or or a drama or some kind of like sexy film. He would like take that and intentionally kind of turn it on its head and then take the idea or concept of like taking different genres and kind of blending them together. Like if when like Jess Franco made a zombie movie, which he did, he's not going to make it in a traditional sense. He's going to do something really unique and kind of fucked up with it, and very, and it's going to be not predictable. And I think his way was premeditated. His method, and he was totally aware. Like he could do something very orthodox or traditional, and he made those decisions. And the way he did shot a lot of his films, because I feel like that was how he wanted to do it. He wanted to be unconventional, and and he's amazing. And I think from a technical standpoint, when I was saying like, well, if you see one of his films, like, or a few of them, you're like, wait, that editing is fucked up or weird. But he's doing that on purpose, and I think he's aware of that, and it's not. He's doing that not because he doesn't have the ability to be a good editor or a filmmaker. He's doing it intentionally to kind of give you a different experience. So it's interesting how directors have such a different, unique approach. And in this film here, even though it's Trash City 101, it's done really really well. Like, you know, I can't recommend this movie enough. It's you have to see it to believe it. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. And enjoy the snow if you're living in Maine or New England. Peace.